Hi there Waltineers, I'm Jack and this is DSNY Newscast, and with it being the beginning of 2026, I thought right now would be a great time to do a kind of state of construction update on all the various construction projects that are currently taking place at Walt Disney World at the moment. And as of late, there's been a lot of progress to talk about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this up into three separate parts, with the first part being all about Encanto at Animal Kingdom, the second part being about the Monsters Inc. roller coaster that's coming to Hollywood Studios, and then the third part we're going to discuss Magic Kingdom's construction and the preparations being made for the Cars area and the Villains Land being built at that park. And so with that being said, let's begin by talking about Tropical Americas at Disney's Animal Kingdom, as this is the project that's seen a lot of construction activity as of late and easily probably made the most amount of progress, as is evident by the fact that the construction on this project has indeed gone vertical, and it went vertical in late 2025, or December 4th to be exact, as that was the date that the first piece of steel framework went into the ground for the attraction show building's exterior, as we can see here in a video that was released by Disney on December 5th confirming that milestone. And since then, the construction has not slowed. The pace of construction has continued throughout Christmas and into the New Year, and I had to get out to Animal Kingdom and see it with my own eyes. So I've got some construction images from the ground view perspective of what we can see above the construction walls from the guest perspective, and then also I'd like to say a massive thank you to BioReconstruct over on Twitter or X for providing fantastic aerial images as always of all of these construction projects. And you can actually see the width of this show building is complete in terms of the first section they built towards the back of the building into the backstage area beyond the berm of where Chester and Hester's Dinorama used to be. So in actual fact, it is increasing the footprint of Animal Kingdom ever so slightly to build this attraction beyond what Dinoland used to be in that location. And from the aerial perspective, we can see the outer frame K-bracing for the steel framework of the show building itself. But from the ground view perspective, you get a whole different look into the actual show building. And you can see some of the interior wall support struts that will form the interior layout of this ride. And whilst I was also there, I also captured some footage of them lowering in some of the steel struts that will form the roof line to this part of the show building as well. But either way you look at it, it's a massive show building, whether it's from the aerial perspective or from the ground view perspective. It is massive. And to give you some context here in terms of the scale of this show building, we actually received the permits for this project back in late 2024. And by using these permits and mapping this out onto Google Earth, we can give a rough approximation of the size of the show building by measuring it out on Google Earth. And I measure it out to be approximately 80,000 square feet in size here for the entirety of that show building, including the queue space as well. It's a huge show building, and something like Remy's Ratatouille Adventure over at Epcot, if you also measure that out on Google Earth, it's approximately 50,000 square feet, which just goes to show it's a much larger attraction, and I consider Ratatouille to be a decent length of dark ride. It's around 5 minutes long, so if you think about it being 50,000 square feet, being 5 minutes, you know, this is very rudimentary here, but 80,000 square feet, maybe a couple extra minutes. So it's going to be a very decent length of family-friendly dark ride within this area, and got high hopes for it because what it's replacing is Primeval Whirl and obviously Triceratops Spin. Primeval Whirl for the last few years wasn't really operating all year round, it was operating seasonally as well. And so to get that whole area replaced with a family-friendly dark ride, that means there will be a capacity bump to Animal Kingdom, and it's much needed. So that's a positive. Now, in terms of what we're visibly seeing in terms of construction here for the show building, it's roughly around 1/3 of the entirety of the ride building. So that's including the queue area. And the reason why I'm saying that is if we cross-reference it with the model for Tropical Americas that's on display over at Hollywood Studios, you can see that this is very much the back section of that model, with the lower section at the back, which is probably for some sort of maintenance service area there leading to the backstage area. Now, considering we know that they've managed to construct roughly a third, maybe just over a third of the show building in 6 weeks or so. I would say if we're using that as a guide and we're estimating the rest of it out, I would say that this will probably be complete by late April into May. They'll have the entirety of the Encanto building ready to start being enclosed, and then they can start working on the themed elements. And the other thing that we should mention here is that because it is the back of that model, we know that that's the tallest part of that model. So what we're seeing from a ground view perspective of the construction inside the park, that is most likely it topping out for the top of the attraction. It might go a bit higher in terms of theming and everything else, but I don't think it'll be going much higher than what we're currently seeing. But the other reason why I want to bring up the height of this building is because it's very important to talk about sight lines within the park. Now, if you look at this image here, this was taken from the side of Flame Tree Barbecue, you know, the other side of the bridge where the Dinoland USA sign is. And this is as much of the attraction that you can see from that perspective. And it's very important to talk about sightlines because it's also acting as the thing that's going to be beckoning you down into Tropical Americas. And if we look at the layout again, and we know that this is the back third of the building, we know that from just the Discovery Island area, you won't be able to see the casita as you walk into Tropical Americas. That'll be a kind of grand reveal moment as you turn left and you see the casita in all its glory there from Encanto. So that'll be a nice little moment as you walk further into the land. But it's important that they theme the exterior of the building as we can see in the model, because that is the thing that you're going to be able to see from a distance. And it's going to be themed to that kind of Colombian mountainous landscape there on the side of the building as we can see in the model. And speaking of that, BioReconstruct also took some photos of the Imagineering office that's backstage that was newly built a couple of years ago at Animal Kingdom. And to the side of there, they've got some rock work and foliage and exterior theming tests going on just outside. And they do these so therefore they can test to see how the theming can withstand the various elements, you know, the harsh Florida sun bleaching the elements and the paint and the rock work and stuff like that. But what we can see here, if we zoom in, is I reckon maybe part of the foliage for the mountainous landscape, and the other rock work around there could be for other parts of Tropical Americas and the exterior theming, but it could also be for the Indiana Jones Mayan temple themed exterior that will be replacing Dinosaur as well. Now, in terms of the ride system for the Encanto attraction, obviously there's been a lot of rumours about what this could be, but the leading rumour is that this is going to indeed be a track-based system, and it's most likely going to be using Omnimover components, therefore it can rotate the ride vehicle as you move around the casita. But I think it could be like a more advanced version of Journey into Imagination with Figment, where it is a track-based system, and the cars do move around all together, but they all rotate with an Omnimover style mechanism on the track. And if they use some sort of surface in between each one of the ride vehicles, like they do a little bit with Journey into Imagination with Figment, you could maybe hide the track throughout the entire attraction. But I feel like with the casita, if we can see the track within the attraction, kind of removes some of the magic of what the casita is meant to be within Encanto, where it is moving you round and it's got a mind of its own. So we'll see how they manage to create that illusion. And we do know that this whole project for Tropical Americas is still slated to open in 2027. That is the official line from Disney, that they are going to be opening Tropical Americas in 2027. And considering the state of construction at the moment, I would say it's going to be towards the latter half of 2027, maybe fall 2027, if I was to make a prediction right now at the very beginning of 2026 for when this could open. Now, with that being said, let's move on to Monsters Inc. over at Hollywood Studios, as there's been a lot of progress made on the roller coaster foundations for the Gravity building, the main bulk of the building where the roller coaster for the Monsters Inc. Door Coaster attraction is going to be located. And as we can see in these aerial construction images from BioReconstruct, the building's footprint is completely outlined now in the cast member parking lot area. they have actually begun the foundation work and the concrete pours on the base of this building. And we've seen a lot of drilled pilings being put into the ground here. Now, what this is it's ground preparation to stabilize the area for a very substantial building. And it's what's known as auger cast piles that are drilled into the ground, and concrete is then poured in with rebar to kind of act as a more solid base on a less stable ground like what is found typically in Florida. So it kind of really reinforces the foundational structure for them to then pour the concrete base onto. And then we'll start to see the supports for the coaster get drilled into that concrete base. And so it's very important they do this kind of work, because this entire show building size is approximately 103,000 square feet. And that is pretty huge. And to put that into context, Rise of Resistance in Galaxy's Edge, that's roughly around 100,000 square feet as well. And if I was to guess at the next stage of construction here, beyond the concrete pour, I think they'll begin to construct this roller coaster system sort of in plain sight outside, because as we saw with Cosmic Rewind over at Epcot, they constructed the show building first and then enclosed it and then started to bring in the various track elements and kind of construct it like a ship in a bottle. And if they opt for the outdoor construction style of Rock and Roller Coaster back in the day, they installed it all outside and then they enclosed it later, it makes for a much quicker construction timeline for the actual attraction here. And the reason why I'm saying that is because we've already seen the model for this attraction. They've displayed it at D23. We know roughly what the layout of the roller coaster system is going to be. I did a whole video on it back in, I think, March of 2025. I'll leave a link down below in the description box showing you the entire layout of the Monsters Inc. door coaster attraction based off that model. And so they're not being secretive about that. And we all know what to expect from this. So hopefully they do opt for the outdoor construction of the coaster track and then enclose it afterwards. And then let's move over to Magic Kingdom, as Rivers of America has completely gone. It's been drained, and as of my last report on this, which was about the Villains Land in November, there were still some parts of Tom Sawyer Island remaining that were still being demolished. But now, as we can see in these images from BioReconstruct, it's been completely removed and leveled, and land grading is fully underway on this entire area of Rivers of America. And what's really interesting about this is if we zoom in, we can see that some wooden framing has been put into the ground here, which are most likely going to be used for some sort of concrete pour in this section of the front part of the former Rivers of America. And this area is going to be where the Piston Peak National Park environment, inspired by the whole Cars universe, is going to be located in the park. Elsewhere within the construction site here, we can see that there's the laydown yards beyond the traditional railroad berm of Magic Kingdom have been completely cleared away and leveled and prepped, ready for construction equipment to be staged on the laydown yards. That's what these laydown yards are for. They're for staging of construction equipment to get them in and out of the construction area really easily. So those have been zoned as laydown yards beyond the construction berm, unless there's a change in permit. At the moment, that's what those outer areas are going to be. Now, back in my Villains Land deep dive video in October, I did discuss the fact that behind the back of Haunted Mansion, most likely that forested area, they were going to expand into that area. And as we can now see in these aerial images, that whole area has been cleared away and is being land graded and prepped for further construction. So behind the back of Haunted Mansion show building, there's most likely going to be something in that location. I personally think, given the way that the drainage permits have been laid out, I think in that corner it would make the most sense to have some sort of dark ride attraction show building in that corner, as then you have backstage access to that show building from the backstage area of Magic Kingdom, and you can share that whole access road back there. So we'll see what happens in that location, but it is good to see further progress being made, and also it takes my rough approximation of the entirety of Villains Land up to 11 acres now. I reckon if they don't go beyond the railroad berm, which is possible they might still do if they rezone some of that laydown yard for actual theme park space, it could expand even beyond that. But if we just go off where we know the Cars area will end and the Villains Land will supposedly begin up to the railroad berm, I reckon it's roughly around 11 acres now for Villains Land. And then another interesting development is that right next to Haunted Mansion, they have begun to clear the land and clear the tree line to the side of the Haunted Mansion. And from this aerial image, you can see that it is a sizable piece of land that they've already cleared, and they might continue to clear more out of that area. But also, thanks to blogmickey.com here, we can also see from the ground view perspective that that part that's right next to Haunted Mansion is actually an inclined bit of land. And so if they're going to build any sort of building on the side of that land next to a Haunted Mansion show building, they're going to need to take some of that land out and level it down to a normal surface level. So it'll be very interesting to see what develops in this area here. Now obviously this opens up a lot of questions and possibilities, and the most obvious one is that the answer is it's probably going to be a reworking of the Haunted Mansion queue into that section there, so therefore it opens up better guest flow into Piston Peak National Park area and the Villains Land. But ever the optimist here, you know, I've been talking about this for year after year after year, and you're probably sick of hearing me talk about it now, but I would love to see a Haunted Mansion restaurant or even a Haunted Mansion bar, similar to the Haunted Mansion parlour on the cruise ships, come to the parks next to Haunted Mansion. And as I said all the way back in 2022 in a video, this is the exact location where I would put a Haunted Mansion restaurant, but we'll see what happens in the future. That's all just my own personal wish list and speculation on what I would like to see in that area. Now, going further out on this construction project, we can see more of the laydown yards, and we can also see the Imagineering office that's been constructed on part of the laydown yards there. But it's great to see all of this land being graded and stuff like that, because eventually, if they do want to expand further beyond what they can see within Rivers of America here, it's open, it's ready, and the land will be stable and ready to be used in the future. And one last thing I know everyone will be wondering about this is Liberty Bell, the riverboat. It is currently still safely docked backstage at Magic Kingdom, and it seems to be undergoing some sort of maintenance in that docking area there. So we don't know where it's going to go in the future yet, but it hasn't been taken away and demolished, which is a positive sign that maybe they'll want to do something with the Liberty Bell riverboat in the future at Walt Disney World. And so with that being said for today, it's now over to you, Waltineers. I would like to know, what are your thoughts and opinions on all of this construction in this video today at Walt Disney World? What are you most excited to see come to fruition, get built at Walt Disney World? Is it Encanto, Monsters Inc. or Villains? And also, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe down below, hit the notification bell, and check out the rest of the videos on this channel. And also a massive thank you to the official Waltineer Club over on Patreon for always supporting this channel. It's greatly appreciated. And also a big shout out to the official Waltineer Gold members that you can see here on the screen, and also a special thanks to Waltineer Diamond members JC Russell, Justin Tupper, Tim Parsons, and Noah Anderson. And with that being said for today, I've been Jack, you've been you, and I'll see you real soon.